Ethan Ward sat in his large office with floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the tall buildings of the city. He was known as one of the best young business minds, a millionaire CEO who owned a fast-growing technology company. Everyone around him believed his life was perfect. They saw the suits, the cars, the house, the fame, and they thought he had everything. What no one understood was that Ethan felt empty most days. His smile appeared on magazine covers, but it rarely came from his heart anymore. He had built his business from nothing. He'd worked day and night and made smart, sometimes risky choices. People respected him, but they also feared him a little. His assistants whispered about how serious he was, how he seemed made of metal inside. They called him the man who never laughed. What he did not tell them was that laughter used to fill his life once, before his marriage broke down, before his wife left him and their 2 children 5 years ago. Now he lived alone in a mansion that was big enough for 10 families, but too quiet for 1 man and 2 small children. His twins, Mia and Leo, were 5 years old. They were the reason he kept going every morning. When he came home at night, their small feet ran across the hall to greet him, their innocent voices breaking the silence of his grand house. Ethan's heart softened only when he was with them. They had his blue eyes and his stubborn smile. They were bright, curious, and sometimes too clever. One rainy night, after a long meeting, Ethan came home tired. The twins were sitting on the living room floor with crayons, a tablet, and a guilty smile on their faces. He placed his briefcase down and raised an eyebrow. "What are you 2 up to?" he asked. Mia looked at Leo. Leo looked at Mia. They both giggled. "We made you a surprise," Mia said proudly. "We helped you find someone nice." Ethan frowned with gentle confusion. "Find someone? A friend?" "Or maybe a girlfriend," Leo added, as if this were the most natural thing in the world. "You're always working and sometimes you look lonely. So we made you an account on a dating app." Ethan almost laughed. It was the first real laugh he had let out that week. "You did what?" he said, trying to sound serious but failing completely. Mia showed him the tablet screen. There it was. His picture, one that must have been taken when he looked distracted next to a short profile. "Meet Ethan," it said. "Freelance repair technician. Loves kids, books, and building things." The twins had replaced his real job title with something simple. "I said you fix things for people," Mia explained. "That's true. You fix toys, you fix computers, you even fix our broken swings. You're a fixer." Ethan looked down at the little faces filled with pride. For a moment, he wanted to explain that lies were wrong. He wanted to delete the account and tell them he didn't have time for dating. But their small hope touched something deep inside him. Maybe they were right. Maybe he was lonely. The next morning, as he was preparing breakfast, his phone buzzed. There was a new message from the dating app. The name showed Claire Morgan. She had sent a simple hello and a shy smile through the screen. Her profile picture showed a woman sitting in a small library surrounded by books. She said she worked with children and loved simple things like coffee, gardening, and old movies. Ethan's first thought was that this was ridiculous. What could a children's librarian have in common with a corporate businessman who spent half his life in boardrooms? But there was something refreshing in her words. She wrote that she believed kindness mattered more than money, and that real love was quiet, like the turning of a page. Something about it made Ethan pause. He typed a small reply. "Hello, Claire. I'm Ethan. It's nice to meet you." He did not mention his company, his money, or his fame. He only asked her what book she was reading that morning. Days passed, and their small messages turned into longer ones. When she laughed at his awkward jokes, he felt something new. She didn't treat him like a business story or a prize. She seemed to like his sincerity, not his success. At work, his assistant noticed he was calmer. He smiled more often and seemed less impatient. "Ooh." The twins watched this change and whispered to each other with proud grins. "See, he likes her," Leo said. "We made Dad happy again," Mia replied. Ethan did not realize how much this simple connection meant to him until he found himself checking his phone before bed just to see a new message from Claire. He had not done that since college. For the first time in years, he felt curious about someone not because of what she could bring to his brand, but because of how she made him feel human again. As the days went by, Claire suggested they meet in person for coffee. Ethan hesitated. He thought of his suits, his cars, his name that filled online news pages. If she discovered who he really was, would she still talk to him? The fear of being judged for his money tugged at him. He made a choice that night. He called his driver and asked to borrow the old motorcycle kept in the storage garage. He found simple jeans and a plain jacket. He wanted to meet her not as Ethan Ward, the CEO, but as Ethan, the single father with a hopeful heart. As he tucked the twins into bed, Mia whispered sleepily, "Will she like you, Daddy?" Ethan smiled softly. "I don't know, Pumpkin. Maybe she will." Then quietly to himself he added, "Maybe she liked the real me." Sleep came slowly that night. But for the first time, Ethan dreamed not about his company, but about a small cafe. The sound of laughter and a woman with kind eyes waiting to meet him. The morning of the meeting arrived with a light breeze and a calm sky. Ethan stood in front of his mirror feeling more nervous than he had before any business deal. Wore plain jeans and a clean white shirt with rolled sleeves. There was no tie, no expensive watch, no gold cufflinks. The person looking back at him did not look like a millionaire CEO, but an ordinary man getting ready for an ordinary day. That was exactly what he wanted. The twins ran around him in excitement. "You look cool, Dad," Leo said with wide eyes. "You look like a superhero pretending to be normal." Mia giggled and handed him a small Lucky Charm keychain she had made with colored beads. "Take this," she said, "so she knows you are nice." Ethan smiled and put the keychain in his pocket. "Thank you, my little helpers. I'll behave for Miss Harper while I'm away." The twins nodded, trying to keep straight faces, but clearly thrilled by their plan coming to life. He left the mansion on the borrowed motorcycle that barely matched his usual lifestyle. The engine roared, the wind hit his face, and the ride gave him a strange sense of freedom he had not felt in years. His mind kept returning to Claire's messages. He liked her laughter, the way she noticed small details, and how she made ordinary words feel bright. The cafe Claire had chosen was a charming old place on Maple Street. Its windows were full of tiny plants, and its front door chimed softly as he entered. The smell of coffee mixed with warm pastries greeted him. He searched for her and saw a woman sitting by the window with a cup in her hand, reading a small paperback book. Her brown hair was tied carelessly, and her blue cardigan had a tear at the sleeve. She looked peaceful, unaware of how magnetic that peace was. He took a deep breath, walked toward her, and said, "Hi, Claire." She looked up with a smile that warmed the air around them. "Ethan, I'm glad you came." Her voice was gentle and real. There was no hint of pretense. They sat across from each other, and for a moment both stayed quiet, pretending to study the menu, though neither of them was reading. Then Claire said softly, "You look exactly how I thought you would, simple and kind." Ethan almost laughed at the irony, but he managed a small smile. "And you look exactly how I hoped you would, honest and brave." The waiter came by, and they ordered 2 cups of coffee and a slice of pie to share. As they talked, the nervous tension faded. She told him stories about the children in her library who refused to return books because they loved the stories too much. He told her he sometimes helped his kids build model rockets that rarely worked, but still made them cheer. Claire smiled warmly. "You have children? That's wonderful. What are they like?" Ethan leaned back. "Mia and Leo. They're twins. Smart, funny, and a handful. They give my life color." Her eyes brightened. "That's beautiful, Ethan. Most people don't talk about their children with so much love. You must be a good father." For a brief moment, Ethan's heart tightened. If she knew everything about him, would she still think that? He pushed the thought aside and said, "I try to be. They keep me grounded." Claire shared how working in a library made her believe in second chances. "People find little pieces of themselves in books," she said. "Sometimes I see lonely faces walk in and calm faces walk out." Listening to her, Ethan forgot the noise of the outside world. She made the simple feel extraordinary. Her laughter was light, her eyes steady, and her words carried comfort. He felt like a man who had been running for years and had suddenly found a quiet bench to rest on. When the waiter brought the bill, Claire reached for it, but Ethan stopped her gently. "Let me," he said. She raised an eyebrow. "You said you're a repair technician, right? We should at least split it." He hesitated, unsure how to respond without giving away his secret. "I repaired a few computers this week," he said playfully. "I can afford coffee?" Claire laughed so freely that a couple at the next table turned to smile. She said, "I like a man who can fix things and make jokes. That's rare." Ethan smiled, but his mind whispered warnings. He was lying, even if only about his job. Still, something inside him begged to keep this illusion a little longer. He wanted to be liked for who he was underneath the wealth, not for what he owned. They stepped outside as the sun began to set. The city lights flickered to life, painting golden shades on the pavement. Claire zipped her sweater and said softly, "I had a good time today." "Me too," Ethan replied. "Thank you for meeting me." She nodded, holding her small book close.
Maybe.
"We can do this again. I like talking to you." Ethan felt an unfamiliar warmth spread in his chest, like that very much. He watched her walk away, toward a nearby bus stop, her steps light and sure. When she turned back and waved, he lifted his hand and smiled. Then he walked to his motorcycle, the charm for Mia still in his pocket, rattling softly with every move. As he rode home through the calm evening air, he realized he felt alive again. The noise of the engine faded behind the sound of his own quiet hope. He had met someone who didn't know his last name, his wealth, or his image. She knew only his kindness. And somehow that felt like the most honest thing in his life. Ethan woke up the next morning feeling lighter than he had in years. The memory of Claire's smile stayed with him. It was not like the shallow smiles he saw at company events. Hers had warmth and truth. He found himself replaying little parts of their meeting in his mind, while helping the twins with their breakfast. Mia asked him questions about the woman he met. Leo kept teasing him, saying he looked happier than before. At work, his employees noticed a change too. Ethan was calmer and kinder when he talked to them. He even shared a joke during a morning meeting which made the whole team laugh. His assistant Nora could not hide her surprise. "You seem different, sir," she said. Ethan smiled. "Maybe I'm just remembering how to be human again." That night, he sent Claire a message asking how her day was. She replied quickly, telling him a funny story about a little boy at the library who refused to return a picture book because he said the characters were his friends. He laughed and told her he wished all readers cared that much. The conversations became a daily routine. They told each other about small things, like favorite foods, childhood memories, and silly mistakes. Each message made Ethan feel closer to her. Over the next few weeks, they met several more times. Sometimes they walked in the park with paper cups of coffee. Other times they went to watch outdoor movies under strings of soft lights. Their chats flowed easily. Claire liked how Ethan listened with real attention. He did not look at his phone or act distracted. She thought he lived a simple life, fixing things and raising his twins. One sunny Sunday, Claire invited him to help at a children's fair near her library. Ethan brought Mia and Leo because she said children were welcome. The twins ran around happily, painting faces and trying all the small games. Claire watched them with delight. "You raised them well, Ethan," she said. "They're kind and polite. They take after their mother," he said softly, looking away. Claire nodded, sensing the pain behind his voice. "They still have you. That matters most." They spent the afternoon helping children build paper towers and draw posters. Ethan surprised himself by enjoying every moment. People there treated him like any other parent. No one asked him about business or money. For the first time in years, he blended into ordinary life, and it felt peaceful. When the fair ended, Claire walked up to him holding a small cup of lemonade. "You were great with the kids," she said. "I didn't know you could make balloon animals." Ethan grinned. "There's a lot you don't know about me," she smiled. "I'd like to learn more." Something inside him stirred. The urge to tell her the truth rose, but fear followed quickly. He remembered how most people changed when they learned who he was. He did not want that to happen again, so he swallowed the words and smiled instead. Later that week, Claire dropped by the park after work and found Ethan there with his twins. She had not planned to see them. She had only come to clear her thoughts. The twins were running after a ball when they spotted her and ran over happily. "Miss Claire," Mia shouted, holding her hand. "Daddy talks about you." Claire blushed faintly. Ethan stood up, smiling as she approached. "Surprise meeting," he said. "Yes," Claire said softly. "I was just walking by." They all sat on the grass. The twins talked about their favorite books, and Claire listened with real interest. Leo asked if she could recommend more stories. She promised to bring them some books from her library. Watching this scene filled Ethan's heart with quiet joy. The three people he loved most were laughing together. It looked like a picture of a real family. As sunlight faded, Claire waved goodbye to the twins and turned to Ethan. "They're wonderful," she said. "Must be proud." "I am," he said. "They're all I've got that truly matters." That night, after putting the children to bed, Ethan sat on the porch thinking about how natural everything felt with Claire. It had been so long since he could relax around someone without guard or mask. Yet the lie weighed heavier each day. He wanted to tell her the truth, but worried she would walk away. Days passed, and their friendship deepened. They discovered they shared many likes. Both loved pancakes with too much syrup, both hated loud parties, and preferred quiet evenings. Claire once told him she liked people who stayed humble no matter what life gave them. Her words made Ethan's stomach twist. One Friday evening, Ethan invited her to his small apartment, the one he used for his cover. They cooked a simple dinner together and laughed over burnt toast. She looked around the tidy but plain space and said, "You live simply." "I like that." Ethan smiled, though the comment pricked at his heart. She would be shocked if she saw his real home. He imagined her standing in the marble halls of his mansion, surrounded by expensive art. He could almost see the distance that would grow between them. Still, when they sat together on the couch later, sharing leftover dinner, everything felt perfect. She leaned her head on his shoulder and whispered, "You make things feel easy." He looked down at her and thought how little she knew of the truth he carried. When she left that night, the memory of her touch stayed with him like the lingering smell of rain. Ethan stood by the window long after she was gone, torn between two worlds. He had built his life on success, but now found himself fighting for something far simpler. The more he cared for Claire, the more fragile his web of lies became. Yet for now, he chose to hold on to the one thing that made him feel alive again, even if it stood on borrowed truth. Ethan's life had begun to feel peaceful again, but peace built on a secret never lasts. Each day with Claire made him happy, but each smile also reminded him that the truth was waiting. He wanted to believe he could keep both worlds apart forever, but destiny seemed ready to pull them together. One afternoon, Claire stopped by his apartment with a basket of muffins she had baked herself. It was raining outside, and she smelled faintly of vanilla and rainwater. Ethan let her in with a warm smile. She looked around the small living room again, her eyes scanning the shelves lined with only a few books and a photo of the twins. "You keep everything so neat," she said. "I like order," he replied. "It helps me think clearly." She nodded, then placed the muffins on the counter. As she stepped forward, her hand brushed against his keys that lay nearby. Attached to them was a silver tag engraved with his initials in fine script. The tag looked expensive, out of place in the simple apartment. She lifted it and studied it. "This is beautiful," she said gently. "Where did you get it?" Ethan hesitated for only a second. "A gift from my father." That was not a lie exactly, but it was not the full truth either. Claire smiled, satisfied, and changed the subject. Yet Ethan saw a tiny spark of doubt in her eyes that made him uneasy. The following weekend, he invited her and the twins to a picnic in a quiet park near the lake. The weather was bright, and the laughter of children echoed through the trees. Ethan spread out a blanket, and they ate sandwiches and played simple games. Claire took pictures with an old camera, and even caught Ethan trying to braid Mia's hair, while Leo laughed at his clumsy fingers. For a few hours, Ethan forgot about everything else. Watching Claire tickle the twins until they squealed made him think that maybe, just maybe, this could become something real. But as they packed up to leave, his phone rang. He had forgotten to put it on silent. The name flashing on the screen was his assistant, Nora. Claire saw the phone before he could hide it. Her expression changed for a brief second. "Your boss?" she asked lightly. Ethan nodded without thinking. Yes. When he got home that night, he felt the lie twisting deeper. Nora had been calling to remind him about an upcoming board meeting and an offer from a foreign investor. He gave quick answers and told her not to contact him during the next few days. Wanted nothing to disturb the fragile world he had built with Claire, but the cracks kept showing. A week later, Claire arrived early before their dinner plan, carrying a small gift for the twins. A neighbor saw her outside Ethan's apartment building and greeted her with a polite smile. "Oh, you're visiting the man who rents this place?" the neighbor asked. "He's never here much, only sometimes. Must have another home somewhere fancy." The words stuck in Claire's mind. She forced a smile and thanked the woman, but her curiosity began to stir. That evening, while Ethan grilled vegetables on the balcony, Claire wandered to his study. On the desk lay a stack of papers. Most were normal notes, yet hidden among them was a letter with the letterhead of Ward Technologies. Her eyes widened. She recognized the name from business articles and news stories. The company belonged to one of the country's youngest successful CEOs. Before she could move, Ethan walked in carrying 2 plates. His face froze as he saw her holding the paper. "Ethan," she said, her voice trembling a little, "why do you have this? Ward Technologies? That's huge." He opened his mouth but said nothing at first. The silence pressed down on them. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. "'Cause it's mine." Claire felt her heart drop. She looked at him as if seeing a stranger. "Yours? You mean you work there?" "Own it," he replied quietly. "I am the CEO." She set the paper down slowly and took a step back. The room seemed to shrink around her. "All this time," she said, "you let me believe you were just a repair technician? Why?" "Because I wanted to know who I was to you without the money, without the name," he said. Her eyes filled with disbelief. "You lied? You didn't trust me to make that choice myself," Ethan tried to explain. But Claire shook her head. She grabbed her coat and walked toward the door, her voice trembling. "You didn't need to pretend to be poor to find someone real. You just needed to be honest." The door closed behind her softly, yet the sound hit him like thunder. The next days passed in painful silence. Claire ignored his messages. In the library where she worked, she tried to keep busy, but could not stop thinking about the look on his face when she left. She had cared about him, maybe more than she wanted to admit. But the lie had planted doubt deep inside her. Ethan, meanwhile, felt the weight of his deception crush him. Every memory of her laugh and her gentle eyes now carried the sting of regret. He had wanted to protect what they had, but instead, he had destroyed it. Even the twins noticed his sadness. Mia asked him one evening, "Daddy, why don't you smile anymore?" He hugged them both and said softly, "Sometimes when we make a wrong choice, it hurts people we care about. But we can try to fix it." As he tucked them into bed, his mind was made up. He would find a way to show Claire who he truly was. Not through words, but through actions that proved the truth he had hidden behind his wealth. The lie had broken something precious, but he was not ready to let it vanish without a fight. Claire woke up the next morning, still troubled from what had happened. The sound of the rain outside matched the heaviness in her chest. She had believed in Ethan, trusted his kind eyes, and felt safe around him. Now every memory of their laughter felt like part of a story built on false ground. She moved slowly through her small apartment, drank cold coffee, and tried to convince herself that it was better to forget. She told herself he had lied for a reason that he believed was right, but the wound was still too fresh. At the library, she could barely focus on her work. People came in to borrow books, children laughed around her, but her heart was miles away. She checked her phone more than once, knowing that he might have sent messages, but she could not bring herself to read them. When she finally looked, there were several short texts waiting. "I am sorry," one said. "I never wanted to hurt you," said another, and one simply read, "Please let me explain." She put the phone face down and took a long breath. The words looked honest, yet she could not be sure anymore. In another part of the city, Ethan stared at his office window, watching the streets below. He had faced many kinds of challenges in business, but none had shaken him like this. Money and power could not fix this kind of damage. Inside the office, people moved around with files and reports, but Ethan barely heard a word. His assistant Nora entered quietly with a worried look. "Sir, the investors are waiting for your decision about the new branch," she reminded him. Ethan nodded slowly. "Tell them it can wait. There's something more important I need to do." Nora looked at him, surprised. "More important than the company?" "Yes," he said plainly. "Someone deserves the truth." That evening, Claire's library held its annual charity event. A small gathering meant to raise money for children's reading programs. The place was decorated with paper lanterns and banners made by students. Claire had promised her co-workers she would attend, even though her heart was not in it. She stood near the book display, greeting guests with a polite smile she didn't really feel. The lights dimmed as the local news station arrived to cover the event. Cameras flashed, and the children stood proudly beside their art, just as Claire was helping a little girl arrange a pile of donated books. A sudden stir spread through the crowd near the entrance. People started whispering, and she turned to see Ethan walking in. He looked nothing like the man she had known in his plain apartment. He wore a dark suit, the kind that cost more than her year's rent, and he carried himself with the calm of a person used to attention. Several guests began murmuring his name. He shook a few hands politely, but kept his eyes only on her. Claire's heart pounded. "What are you doing here?" she asked as he approached. "I had to," he said softly. "You wouldn't answer, and I need you to hear me." The crowd began to notice the tension between them. Some people whispered his name again, while a few workers from the library stood frozen in surprise. Ethan took a small step closer. "I lied, yes. I thought pretending to be an ordinary man would give me a chance to meet someone who saw me for myself. I met you, Claire, and it worked because you did see me, only not the version I showed." She crossed her arms, fighting back tears. "You could have told me the truth when it mattered. All I ever asked for was honesty." "I know," he said, "and I ruined that trust. Please believe me when I say nothing about how I feel for you is false." For a moment, silence filled the room. A reporter nearby whispered to a cameraman, and within seconds, Ethan's face appeared on the big screen that projected the event's live broadcast. His name, his company, his fame, all of it filled the space. The guests started clapping without understanding the situation, thinking he had come to donate money. Claire stood in the middle of the noise, feeling trapped between anger and disbelief. Ethan turned to the crowd for a moment and spoke. "This library changes lives. It teaches children to dream. Tonight, Ward Technologies will donate enough to build new branches in every nearby town. One person here made me see how much truth and compassion matter more than profit." His gaze returned to her. "Her name is Claire." The applause was warm, but Claire's eyes were cold. "That is generous," she said quietly. "But it doesn't change what you did." He nodded slowly. "I know it doesn't, but it's the only way I can start to make things right. I don't expect you to forgive me now. I only hope time will show you that what I feel is real." She stared at him for a long moment before walking away. The crowd cheered for his words, not understanding the heartbreak behind them. Later that night, Claire sat alone on a park bench not far from the library. The wind carried the faint echo of applause. She closed her eyes and let a tear slip down. She wanted to forget him, but couldn't. Even though he had lied, she remembered his laughter with her and the way he had looked at his children. Ethan stood in the distance by his car, watching her silhouette beneath the streetlight. He didn't go near her. This time, he knew the only thing he could give her was space. The truth had been told, and now only her heart could decide what came next. Both of them felt the same slow love, still there, but wounded, waiting to see if honesty could ever rebuild what a lie had broken.